Hello, Mudasir. How are you?
Hi, Sai. I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing well, my friend. It's so very good to see you as always, and we welcome those that have joined us today for Deconstructed for a worthwhile conversation and guest with Stefaan, the Workplace Curiosity Manifesto. Very briefly, Mudasir, if you'd like to introduce yourself to the audience, and then we'll dive right in.
Sure. Hi there. I'm Mudassir. I am a leadership and transformation coach. I work with leaders as well as the team members, helping in resolving the challenges as well as finding the opportunities to excel so that everyone can perform at their best.
Excellent, excellent. And likewise, I'm Sai. I focus on transformation and change, if you will, and I partner with organizations to help them calibrate their business models, their operating models for maximum impact in the world, positive impact in the world. As I like to say, help them embrace the sacred triad, which is really reality, human nature, and their identity through their aliveness to have that impact. And we have an incredible guest with us today, as we do.
Right.
If you're a good mood, I'm going to say a few words and then we'll invite Stefaan into the conversation.
Most definitely. Please go ahead.
Excellent, excellent. So this is a brilliant soul who is challenging us, invigorating us in every which way, and his book that has come out fairly recently. I love the way he starts off. He says curiosity is a muscle, and he truly encourages us to look at it in that fashion. As such, do we work that muscle? Don't we work that muscle? So an incredibly beautiful backdrop. He also really emphasizes that it is a powerful force. So not only is he telling us we have a muscle, it is a powerful force to have an impact in the world. So truly speaks and sings to the things that Mudasir and I have just mentioned. And I love the way he sets it up, and he says, we are in dire need of asking different questions. So this is a man who is inviting us, who is challenging us, if you will, and truly helping us get to where we need to get to as a society. On a very, very personal note, before we invite Stefaan in, I love his acknowledgement where he expresses something and very, very critical. He expresses gratitude to his parents. And as he says, they accepted me for who I was and made sure I retained my childhood curiosity. To be honest, I get goosebumps even just saying it. So the brilliant soul that is with us today, Stefaan, my good friend, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much, Sai and Mudassir, for having me. This is no pressure. You're setting me up for for high expectations, but thanks for doing this. I'm grateful. Thank you.
You're most welcome. You've truly touched us. I mean, you've touched us amongst many other people, my good friend. And perhaps just to dive in, just please share more about your background and how you a little bit about your journey and how we're here today, my good friend.
My thank you, Stefaan van Hooydonk. I'm Belgian, um, married, still to the same partner from way back, and four children. Um, and if you're looking at my career, there's probably three stages. First, I started in investment consulting, which I did in China and in Hong Kong, and then I moved into learning roles, and I was setting up corporate universities, and I was setting up. I was chief learning officer for quite a number of companies, like Flipkart in India, like Philips, like Agfa, and my last job was Cognizant, where I was kind of responsible for the learning and development of 300,000 colleagues globally, and I really got excited about well, basically, we all know people that are asking different questions. We all know people that don't need to go to any trainings because they're on top of their game. They read books, they're interested, they're not afraid to ask stupid questions. They're even proud of not knowing. And they're interested not only in their own specialization, but they're also reading broadly and are interested broadly in the world, in others, and themselves. And I was reflecting a little bit on this last job. Wouldn't it be nice that everybody's like this? Because also realizing that often these are the minority in organizations. So is this something I was asking myself and reflecting deeply, is this a given? Or is this something that can be developed? And wouldn't it be nice to trigger people, if it can be developed, to trigger people towards becoming all? And I ended up calling these people A players. And I had the opportunity to start a small pilot, which became a big pilot. We trained 15,000 people on the notion of curiosity, because after a while we realized that the really differentiating fact was intentional curiosity of those people.
Mm.
They're curious, but they're not only curious in the terms of like whenever they have a beep on their mobile phone, they're looking up. That's also curiosity, but we were much more intentionally curious about pursuit. They had a focus and they had discipline to go behind that focus and answer all the questions they had. So we trained 15,000 people on a notion of curiosity and short sessions, 45 minutes, where we told people about neuroplasticity. Murder's here as a coach, you of course, you're talking about this all the time. And so basically telling people you can change, your brain can change, you can change therefore also. So you're not fixed, including your curiosity you can change. And then we gave people some strategies. And then we asked people to share at least with one other person, or if they're managers with their team, what they had learned. And that's it. We left it at that. And then 3 months later, we checked in with people and we checked, well, as we did with all of our programs, what do you remember? And people, the majority of people said, like, the little seed you planted in us has resulted that we're starting to look at the world differently. Right. And then 1 year later, we checked in our analytics team. They said, oh, let's compare the learning hours before those sessions and after those sessions for 12 months. And it jumped from 25 hours to 43 hours. And everybody else being equal, everybody else was at 25 hours, and this group of 15,000 people was on average at 43 people. I said, boy, this can't be true. And I left my cozy job and I set up the institute. And I said, because I realized there was so little research done on this concept of curiosity. While everybody around me was saying that now in the 21st century, we need not to rely on the skills of the past. We need to reinvent ourselves because our industry is changing, because our environment is changing, because we have new entrants, but the skills are changing rapidly. And that's where I am now in the curiosity space.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that, Stefaan. So based on what you shared, and what is the most surprising thing that you figured out in your research?
Oh, there's many things. Well, one thing would be, for instance, that there is this illness called toxoplasmosis, and about 30 to 50% of the population gets it or has it, even if it's not emerging. And we get it from cats. And cats get it from rats. And what it changes into in the rats' brain is that instead of walking away from danger, the toxoplasmosis bacteria reconfigures the brain to walk towards fear, towards the danger. So it's an easy job for a cat, because suddenly she has the rat or the mouse not running away, but kind of running towards the cat. The cat eats it. We are close to cats, and we get it from cats. So somehow curiosity killed the cat is not too far off in terms of that cats really have an influence curiosity. Now, another thing that surprised me is this entire notion of curiosity killed the cat. You know that up until the 19th century, it was not curiosity killed the cat, but care killed the cat, because it was a different saying. And only sometime in the 19th century, we changed that notion, into curiosity killed the cat, as if curiosity is a bad thing. And very often you're seeing that if you're looking at history, until the 1950s, roughly, curiosity was a bad thing. Because it was all about nosy children poking their noses into spaces that they were not supposed to, or gossiping, or and only after 1950s, curiosity has a positive connotation, as it links to entrepreneurship, as it links to discovery. Like we send the first Mars rover to Mars, and we call it curiosity because it's such a positive thing now. So all these negative dimensions are all predating 1950s, and in many languages we have this love-hate relationship with curiosity. In the Polish language, we say curiosity. Well, not we say, but what I heard is curiosity is the first step to hell. Curiosity being another very positive thing. Well, I keep on rambling, but there's many things that surprised me in this notion.
Thank you, Stefan. So in your book, you talked about definition of curiosity, and we do have a separate chapter in itself about that. So can you help us, or please share your definition of curiosity?
Well, what I realized that curiosity is not a binary thing. Often people in popular language saying you're either curious or you're not, and often you're born with curiosity and you keep it all your life or not. But I realized it's much more multifaceted thing that I didn't know before I started really digging deeper into curiosity. Now, the definition I have is curiosity is the mindset to challenge the status quo, explore, discover, and learn. So it's about challenging the status quo, it's about exploration, it's about discovery, it's about learning. And the definition I try to create is a definition that both is relevant for human beings, but also is relevant for systems. Because organizations can be curious or not. Even societies can be curious or not. Let's compare North Korea and Singapore, and let's see who is the curious versus a not so curious society. And immediately we have a hunch. So curiosity is a mindset to challenge the status quo, discover, learn, and explore, discover, and learn. And when we dig a bit deeper, let's look at what is the object of our curiosity. We can often also, again, in popular language, when we talk about curiosity, is our curiosity about the world, kind of being interested in stuff, out there. But often when we think a bit deeper, we can also think about curiosity of others, which follows actually very different rules and dynamics. And then the third dimension, probably the most difficult one, what people often don't think about, is curiosity about ourselves. What are my values? What is my purpose? What are my limiting beliefs? Why do I think the things I think? Why do I say the things I say? So that's these three objects, I think, are an important part of the definition. So curiosity about the world, others, and self. And if you allow me to kind of the outcome of each of these three objects is hugely different, because curiosity about the world leads to creativity and innovation. Curiosity about others leads to empathy. And curiosity of self leads to resilience and groundedness and well-being, even happiness. So it has very different dynamics. So if people say, I'm curious, then I'm asking, are you curious about the world or are you curious about others? Because it doesn't have to be. And I did quite a bit of research on Eastman Kodak. And Mr. Eastman, he was extremely curious about the world, but he's known to be very low on his empathic curiosity. So you see, so he can be suddenly there's a different dynamic and different dimensions. And
Stefaan, two, if you don't mind me, if you will ask me another question, there's two key words in the definition that are extremely, there's many key words, but two particular ones that really stand out. I'd love for you to kind of just talk to their relationship and help us better embrace them. One is intentional. So that's a very, very key word as you describe it in the book, and would love to hear your perspective there. And the other word, very deliberately, is challenge. What is the dynamic between being intentional and challenge, and really kind of take us deeper into those particular words and perhaps why we don't challenge enough at times even?
Oh, lovely. This is the first time I get this question. Thanks for asking. So let me think very quickly. Let's look at the opposite of curiosity. For me, the opposite nowadays is conformity. And conformity, there's nothing wrong with conformity, but conformity is something that is always a base position, and we're always drawn towards conformity if we're not careful. And because conformity gives us peace and gives us control or gives us the illusion of control and makes the environment around us simpler and manageable and tangible. And if we're not careful, we lose the fact that this is actually conformity. Even animals, if you look in forests, they always take the same path because they know that path is safe. And so how often are we driving every day the same way to our office? Or when we go to our favorite restaurant, that we're ordering the same thing, or that we take people for granted that we're working with us, So intentionality and challenge is intentionality is all about being proactive as opposed to reactive, and curiosity is almost like an elastic band that pulls us away from this pull towards conformity, so it's going in the other direction, and that needs intentionality, because when we pull on this elastic band a little bit, we get into the zone of learning. And sometimes we have to overcome fear to get ourselves, because suddenly the world looks different. And pulling a little bit gets us into the zone that we're familiar with, but we explore new things. And if we pull even further, we get into the zone where we don't know that we don't know, and we're exploring completely new stuff. It takes even more energy to pull into that zone, but the rewards are so much greater. So that's why we're learning new things, we're exploring new things. It's like going on a holiday to a completely new space and a completely new city, or where we have to explore, where we don't know where. And then challenging and intentionality go together, because you cannot. Well, you can be intentional, but if you don't challenge your status quo, if you don't challenge your current state, it's hard for you to let go, I think, as an individual, but also as a company, as an organization.
Stefaan, in your journey and your observation, especially with so many people, which is a vast number, which I think we can learn a lot from. What sort of guidance would you have for us to really hone in on our intentionality and our ability to challenge, exactly as you have in the definition? Any sort of guidance that you would offer the world, my good friend, beyond, again, the guidance that's in the book?
I'd probably say there's 3 dimensions: awareness, intentionality, and measurement. And we can even kind of make it into a word like AIM to make it easier for us to remember. So I would encourage people to become first aware of how they stand. Am I curious about the world? Am I curious about others? Am I curious about myself? Am I showing up with conformity, or am I showing up with curiosity? For instance, if I'm sitting in a meeting, am I in my judgment mode, or am I in my curiosity mode? If people suggest something new, or with my partner at home, do I think that I still know that person from 20 years ago, or am I interested in a continuous development of the person? Most couples, they divorce or they separate not because they're fighting, but because they got bored with each other. Kind of, they lost this spark with each other. And so awareness is a really important one. And the moment you are aware of your situation, you can become intentional. You can do something about it. And one strategy could be, when you're brushing your teeth in the morning, promise yourself that you'll be a little bit curious about the world, curious about others, and curious about yourself. And in the evening, when you're brushing your teeth again, then kind of replay your film. And it might be not perfect, but at least you take baby steps towards the future. One strategy for being better at empathic curiosity is, like Abraham Lincoln, he has this saying, or he was saying that I don't like that person. I need to get to know him better. Or he said, yeah, I don't like that man, I need to get to know him better. And when not liking somebody, you have two strategies. Either you push away that person and you blame it on the other person because I don't like that person because you're just not likable. Or maybe it's something with you, maybe it's something that you haven't discovered. So one strategy could be for people in the office, try to have lunch with the person you like the least,
Yeah.
or the person that you think is the furthest from your thinking. And it's amazing how much you can learn from the person. Or would you rather continuously have lunch every day with the same group of people? That's not very curious. That's much more conformist, you know.
Mhm.
So awareness, intentionality, and then the third one is measurement. Measure your curiosity. What you measure, you can manage. I've created, for instance, a diagnostic online where people can do it. It takes 10 minutes. We have it now in 8 languages. It's free. It's free. People can do, and the people get feedback about their curiosity about the world, about curiosity of others and self. But you don't have to take a diagnostic. You can also just ask your children, ask your partner, ask your people in your office. Am I showing up today, or in this project, or in this meeting? Do I show up with curiosity or with conformity? And give me feedback. And that's an important moment for vulnerability, that you're willing to learn and that you're sharing that with others.
Okay.
But it's hard.
Great.
In my research, only 23% of first-line managers are asking for reverse feedback.
Mm.
So that means that 77% are not asking, "How
Yeah.
am I doing, dear employee?" Being where, and every day we're together for 8 hours, maybe longer. How am I doing, and what are my blind spots? And
Great.
at middle management level, we have a bit. Well, we're closer to 50%. Let me stop. I
Interesting.
hope I answer your question. Awareness, intentionality, measurement.
All
Yes.
good. All good. Yeah, Mauricio.
Thanks, Stefan. So you have had a fantastic career, and the success that you had with the book Curiosity. I must ask this question. Okay. And the question is, what is the secret sauce that you have to engage your employees and help them become more curious?
Well,
And then this is regardless of the environment and regardless of the organization that you are dealing.
um, I'm going to say respect and trust is a really important one,
Okay.
and trying to role model,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe have a sense. And I don't know about me, but other people have to talk about me. But I often talk about the notion of confident humility,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
and it's a type of humility where people are proud of not knowing as a leader, and when you don't know and when you say you don't know, you suddenly, first of all, it's counterintuitive because many managers say they are afraid of saying so because they think I'm paid more than my team, therefore I should have all the answers. And the more higher up in the hierarchy you go, the more this is a sensation that managers and executives have. But the more people say I don't know, the more they get respect from people.
Yeah.
And at that moment, people have also the opportunity to invite the team to chip in with ideas and to co-create the future, and that increases engagement of the team, because they're co-creating the team with you. So this confident humility is probably a very important one. Having a learning mindset is probably also a very important one. When I was at Cognizant, we did this analysis. The hypothesis was, if a manager learns a lot, the team will learn a lot.
Mm.
Yes or no? And intuitively, you could say, well, yes, that's fine. And actually, we did number crunching, and we've proven that this is actually the case. If the manager is learning a lot, the team is learning a lot. And that's also because the manager is then talking a lot about the value of learning. I've read this article, I've read this book, or I joined this podcast with Simon with us here, and go and check it out. And the team will suddenly feel that this is this is celebrated behavior, and they will follow. Now, the sad thing is the inverse is also true. If the manager is not interested, if the manager is not learning, the team is falling flat in terms of their learning. There's no causation, there's no 100% causation, because there's always A players in the team. People that are not dependent on the manager's behavior, and because they're kind of, they have this hunger themselves.
Yeah.
So how I feared, I don't know, you have to ask other people. But I try to, I always asked people several times a year, how am I doing? And it was amazing how much people, how much feedback I get, and everybody was taking that that question very seriously.
Yeah.
And after a while, people were prepared for it.
Nice.
And I think that's a beautiful gift. I think you can give to yourself. In having this moment of vulnerability, really. But the upside is great.
So, Stefaan, there's one thing that really, really pulled us into your book very openly, and that is in the beginning you say, and I want you to elaborate, if you will, as we put this out there. You really emphasize that this is a manifesto, it's a call to action. It's a huge invitation, and in particular, you offer the 10 strategies that really kickstart your curiosity journey, as you say. And we're talking about, the third one, strengthen your awareness. I would love to hear your thoughts on, especially as you describe it in the book, don't confuse confidence with competence. And, we're often more critical of the competence of others versus rationally analyzing our own level of expertise. Sort of guidance, some perspective on some of that, my good friend. And then please elaborate on some of the other strategies.
I think that the easiest strategies we can talk about is the awareness, intentionality, measurement, and maybe people can read the book and then make up their own minds. You move me onto a tangent. Can you repeat your question?
Most definitely, my friend. Would love to get your thoughts on the confusion factor in particular relative to confidence and competence, because I think you eloquently, you say it so perfectly. Don't confuse confidence with competence, and it's just very key.
When we've seen it with curiosity. Often, when people think of themselves as being curious, we're always seeing that in the positive light.
Yeah.
I'm curious, and not curious in a positive connotation. And then especially when I'm doing research with managers, often managers are not too sure whether curiosity of the team is a good thing. Because some managers say, I should be the curious person and my team should be just following orders, and I'll be doing the thinking and the team is there to do. And it's not strange, because we're just 20 years in the 21st century, and this mentality where the manager is the thinker and the non-managers are the doers is a very 20th century thinking. Remember Frederick Taylor, probably the most important thinker in the 20th century. He got us where we are now, industrial, and he's created this thinking on how strategy should be in a small pocket in an organization just next to the CEO, where the CEO is making up all the thinking, where the CEO and his peers are creating the direction, and everybody should be there to follow up. In a stable environment, that's probably possible. In dynamic environment, it's not possible anymore, because nowadays the CEOs, they don't know how the world is going or what is going to happen tomorrow. But if the organization is allowing everybody to come up with, or to chip in again, to everybody to co-create the future, then there's a possibility to drive that. But it's hard for leaders.
Yeah.
I've been doing quite some number crunching and analytics. For instance, middle managers are about 4 times less ready to say that curiosity is a good thing for an organization.
Wow.
And it's not strange, because they're stuck in the middle somehow. No, they're being given marching orders to run an efficient show, and they're not interested to change that show in mid-course, because changing and transformation at that level, if it's self-initiated, is a lonely business. If you're successful, it's great. If you're not successful, it's quite clear limiting. Or when I'm asking leaders, do you think that curiosity, investing in curiosity, is a positive thing for an organization? About 90% say yes, as it links to kind of product development, engagement, and other things. And then when I ask a follow-up questions, how much are you inviting this innovation and curiosity in your team? Then only 50% say I'm doing so. So it's a little bit of a theory and practice thing. In theory, I love curiosity, but in practice, I'd rather somebody else do it, because my team is focused on efficiency. Or when I'm asking leaders, is your organization supporting curiosity? Close to 90% of the leaders say yes. My organization is celebrating, supporting, and creating a curious environment. When I'm asking the team members of those leaders, only about 50% say so. So curiosity is also a little bit through which lens we're looking at the world. And back to your question, Sai, about competence and confidence, it's maybe this humility is again important. And when I hear about confidence can also be erring on the other side, which is arrogance. And the moment people are too confident, they stop learning, and they stop. Interesting research, for instance, in North America about medical doctors, that older doctors are less good at diagnosing patients when compared to younger doctors. And that links again to confidence, and maybe being overly confident that I've seen all the illnesses in the world, or I've seen, especially those older doctors who are seeing less than 200 patients every year. Those older doctors who keep on running and seeing tons and tons of patients, they have the same batting average with younger doctors. But there's danger that once you think you know, that's maybe where your curiosity and also your knowledge is sliding. And that's dangerous for thinking that you're an expert of some sorts.
This is great insight, Stefan. So you talked about analytics, you talked about management versus employees, and also you talked about doctors and all that stuff. So connecting what you just said to the A players, by definition, who are more curious. So I'm setting the stage to understand, let's say if there is any non-A player who tries to be curious, who wants to be more curious. And then how can we help this kind of personality to understand what is curiosity versus what is intentional curiosity?
That's a beautiful question. Indeed, the A players are those people who are naturally drawn towards the world, towards themselves, and inquisitive about it. The B players are people that want to learn, want to grow, but somehow they've missed or they lost something out of their rucksack from childhood, from adolescence, maybe in professional life, and as I said earlier, indeed, or as you introduced in the beginning, curiosity is a muscle, so there is an opportunity to change. Now, how to help those people? I think the strategies of awareness, intentionality, and measurement is already one. But maybe there's also an opportunity, or let's look at the three probably top barriers for curiosity, and that could help explaining your answer. The first one would be stress. A little bit of stress is good, because that gets you out of your comfort zone and gets you into the mode of learning and doing new things. Too much stress is paralyzing. Too much stress gets you into your survival mode. If you're a Syrian child in a refugee camp, you're not going to be very curious about the world, others, and yourself. You want the food, and you want, and also in the workspace, I've seen lots and lots of leaders, but also anybody really being involved in too many projects and being stressed out. So, and that already tells us maybe being aware about where is the stress coming from and how can I alleviate it? Because curiosity needs time and space. It's such a powerful force, but it needs time and space to do something about it, because otherwise it's fragile. If we're not careful, we get drawn towards those routines. If we're too much stressed, we're not going to change things. Or we're not going to suggest, why do we change the forms we're dealing with or the processes we're dealing with? If your customers is breathing down your neck, you're not going to say, oh, well, let's be creative with the solutions type of thing. No, so stress is an important barrier. And then there's two other barriers. One is intrinsic barriers. The things you tell yourself. Maybe people think of themselves as being overconfident. We spoke about it. Or maybe people have not built enough knowledge. Because the more knowledge people have, the more richer their question strategies are, and the more richer their answering questions are. And intrinsic, it can also be anxiety. Maybe people don't want to be curious because they have all these narratives that prevent them from getting out of their conformity zone. And then the third dimension is extrinsic barriers. Your peer group, the languages you speak, internet technologies, and you can think about social media. You can talk about binge watching. Like when people are stressed,
right?
There's two types of strategies. One strategy is, I'm going to kind of lay down in the couch. And I'm going to binge watch a Netflix series for the weekend,
Yeah.
Or I'm going into social media without any focus or purpose. And what research has found out is actually this is not helping your stress. This is actually getting you even closer to a state of burnout. While if you're approaching your stress with a more active approach, like you go walk in the park, you go and meditate, you go and read a book, you have indeed a discussion with the person you like least in the office, suddenly you're going to be uplifted. Right. And that's a much better strategy to deal with stress. So
great.
So these three barriers probably are a good dimension. Everybody is different. I hate these top 5 proven strategies to get yourselves better, but if people become aware about how they are with the world, with others, and yourself. In North America, like Sai, you're based in North America. If you're a Republican, how much am I aware of my neighbors being Democrats and listening to them with curiosity and not with judgment?
Yeah.
And it's not only about that, but it's also about anybody who's different from me might have different thoughts, might have different ideas. It doesn't have to be political. It can be country. It can be people. There's so much to learn from each other.
Yeah.
And it's just take baby steps.
Well said. Well said. Stefaan, you are a fountain of insights, my good friend, and perspective and what have you. And I know we're coming up on time. There's one question we are dying to ask you, if that's okay. And I would love to kind of put it in there, my good friend. So you've touched on many things, if you will, and especially stress is very close to, I'll say, especially my heart. But in particular, my good friend, what makes you, and this is, again, really to get insight into you, what makes you so curious?
What makes me curious? I don't know. I love trying new things. For instance, recently I bought this piece of agricultural land. I've never done any farming. 20,000 square meters, so it's a big 2 hectares. It's a big piece of land.
It'll keep you busy, exactly.
And for me, it's such a great way of learning Because if I'm planting fruit trees, I don't know how wide or how deep the hole should be to plant the tree in, you know. So I have to go online and I search it. So for me, I'm always looking for new projects to get me out of my comfort zone. And with the land, I want to do something back to nature, and I want to create a food forest based on permaculture principles, and share with the world, and also share with the animals, etc. So I'm learning so much, and I would encourage people to do the same. So that keeps me curious. Curiosity keeps me curious to read about the psychology, to read about the different dynamics that are kind of that we're all faced with. And I think also probably I'm lucky that I have a very stable relationship, because curiosity feeds also on others. If you need a stable environment to be curious, also in your relationship, also at work, because what we spoke about, no, you need time and space to be curious. So I've been lucky to have a wonderful relationship and great kids. I'm sitting here at this round table, and now often I use it as a metaphor, where, because we're all eating might take us 20 minutes, but we'll always stay more than an hour around the table discussing things. And the round table is such a beautiful space because you're always sitting in equal distance from each other. And the round table is 170 centimeters. So it can sit 3 people, but it can also sit 13 people.
Mm-hmm.
So we can always add people. So I think that's also a great way for us to keep curiosity in the family, in discussing and keeping dialogue open with everybody. So I don't know whether I'm answering your question, but
You're giving us insight into who you are, which is very powerful, my good friend. So definitively answering it. Well, very much appreciated, Stefaan. So I know we're coming up on time, if you will. Stefaan, Mudassir, do you have any questions, or should we ask Stefaan sort of for closing comments from his perspective that he'd like to share with the world?
I wish we can exchange the question and answers, but considering the time, let's please move into the closeout.
Excellent. Stefaan, sort of closing thoughts from your perspective, words of wisdom, my good friend, beyond what you've shared already, for us to really hold on to.
Thanks for asking. One really important question, I think, is something that we can ask others, and that's, how well am I doing as your son, as your partner, as your boss? And I think it's a beautifully powerful question that we can ask anybody in our relationships, and it's very humbling to ask that question. How am I doing as your son? How am I doing as your father, as your neighbor? And try it out. That's a great way to learn about yourself, I think, and also to learn about others.
Excellent. Thank you, Stefaan. How about yourself, Mudassir? Just sort of closing thoughts, and as we close out the session.
So, I rather than a closing thought, I would say the takeaways from this conversation is curiosity is a muscle, and it can be a powerful force to tap into the unexplored waters. And then thanks, Stefaan, for your insights and knowledge sharing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Definitely. And I will add to that, if you will, very, very openly. I especially attunement to the conversation around stress. There is eustress and de-stress, is exactly as Stefaan has shared. And that is what works a muscle. And I love the way that you described it and the way that we distract ourselves. But given all of that, definitely the book and the wisdom, there's one thing I hope people really experienced in listening to Stefaan and experiencing Stefaan. There's a degree of humility is not enough to describe it. It's a humanity. There's a degree of humanity, Stefaan, that you put forward that is extremely powerful and needed more than ever in the world, my friend. So thank you for all of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefaan.
Thank you, Stefaan. And for all the folks who've joined us, those that are listening, by all means, definitely dig deeper into Stefaan's book, and we look forward to future conversations. So thank you so much, Stefaan. And thank you.
so much.
Thank you, Stefan.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.